Hello, I'm David R. Jones of the Community Service Society. Welcome to the Urban Agenda. On today's special edition of the Urban Agenda, we will begin by sharing with you a just-completed short film about one of the most successful programs initiated by CSS. It's called the Experience Corps.
I feel rewarded. It's just a good feeling inside that I helped them.
And
it's about people helping people. It's about older people helping younger people.
I can't describe it. I can't describe it. They feel like family.
It's really an experience, and I love it. I really love it.
The Experience Corps is people coming together to improve the lives of children and the lives of their communities. The Experience Corps is a place for volunteers to put their experience to work to make a difference.
very good. Excellent.
Studies have shown that if you are not reading by third grade, you will suffer long-term effects in education. And the goal of Experience Corps is to target first and second grade students who are reading well below grade level and give them the basic foundation of phonics, reading, decoding sounds, so that they're able to be successful by the third grade.
Yes, I can.
The Experience Corps program mobilizes a resource that we've really generally overlooked, senior volunteers. By mobilizing this untapped resource of people who have lived full and productive lives and bringing them well-trained and prepared into public school settings, you can achieve dramatic results of improving reading outcomes.
That's up.
Right.
Like many retired seniors, Shirley Holloway was looking for some way to contribute to her community. Experience Corps volunteers come to school for 4 hours, 4 days a week, usually tutoring students one-on-one.
Before I started the program, well, there is no special thing that I had to do each day. It's good to be needed. Melquan was just very quiet and shy, and he wouldn't even open his mouth. But now he's smiling, he's looking up, and then when you tell him, that's very good, you're doing wonderful, and that's how you can see him sit up and straighten up, and they said, wow, I did it.
Quick.
Good, very good.
The Experience Corps program is wonderful for children. We come home, he wants to read. He tells us, I want to do my homework. No, let me do this homework first. Let me do that. Before, we could never get that.
It makes you feel good. It makes me feel good to know that I'm doing something for us, a community, and helping children. Keep running.
I like to read books. It really makes me happy. I learned how to read in this classroom. I really like to read books, and I really like to come to this classroom.
In the Experience Corps program, there are 2 segments. There is the one-on-one tutoring program and the in-classroom assistance. With the in-classroom assistance, it's a volunteer working with a teacher to assist her in delivering the instruction for the day.
Our teachers are very grateful and thankful for these seniors working with them. They've been doing a fantastic job, and we are very proud of them. We welcome them with open arms in our community.
Okay, now we're going to take 13.
It makes a great difference having, another adult in the classroom and having someone to work constructively with the kids, individually or in groups. There's extra support for myself and for the students.
I had constantly read in the newspaper where kids were dropping out of school early. They were having other difficulties inside of school. And I said, well, if there's anything that I can do, I would do it.
The children, they really respect Mr. Johnson. And a lot of times they gain a little more than they would gain with me as a teacher because he's working with them in a small group as opposed to I'm working with them in a whole class setting.
I think that it's necessary for those who've gone through life and understand this quite a bit should come back and give something of themselves. And I think that's what has been my personal charge.
I find it a really rewarding experience to have this help inside my classroom.
As a teacher, I feel lucky to have had a volunteer work in my classroom. And the kids, they feel lucky too, I believe.
I like that. You make me proud.
At the center of the program is the Experience Corps Volunteer Room. Here, one-on-one tutoring sessions provide the most intensive, individualized learning experience for the students.
Teachers identify students that would best fit our program, and then we go through a series of tests to see where their level is so that we can set them on the right track for success.
When the student first comes in, we get their box, which has all the material in it. And we let the student choose which book they want to start with.
The bird.
Very good. And we have what we call a word bank. And it's our goal to see that each student learns at least 100 words during the school year from reading.
Tatiana's learning how to read. Her reading was a little slow, but since she's been in this program, her reading has progressed a lot, and she loves being here. Every day they come and pick her up, and every day when she come home, she reads a book to me.
Someone takes the time every day to pick them up at a particular time, to not just share time with them, but to make sure that they're able to read, that they're able to write, that they have a voice. It says something wonderful. The volunteers are still concerned about the future generation, and they want to give something back.
I think it's good because it gave a lot of the seniors something to do and something to look forward to rather than just sitting around the house.
Wyatt.
Wyatt.
You had a choir. Queen. At first, I didn't want to do it when they said that I would be tutoring children because I had no experience in tutoring or doing anything. And I was afraid. I really was afraid. But then they said that they would give me some training, so that made it a little easier.
We're just going to go over a few things.
Experience Corps volunteers are recruited from within the community and receive intensive curriculum-based training.
The group setting takes place in the classroom.
The Experience Corps program is a program that developed out of our retired senior volunteer program. It is the signature program for the Community Service Society.
Jump as fast as...
What drew us together is what keeps us together, to help young people obtain a quality education.
I'm learning how to read really well.
I love her. I really and truly love her in my heart. I get a joy out of working with her.
I really like to read.
We'll be right back to continue the urban agenda.
There is really only one boy. One girl. One tree. One forest. One deep, dancing ocean. One mountain calling. One handful of sand through our fingers. One endless sky overhead. And one simple way to care for it all. Please visit earthshare.org and learn how the world's leading environmental groups are working together under one name, EarthShare. One environment, one simple way to care for it.
I'm now pleased to be joined by the CEO of the National Experience Corps program, John Gomperts, and my colleague, Kemba Tamar, the project director of our CSS Experience Corps program in New York City. Welcome.
Thank you.
John, tell us about the national program. I mean, we've just seen a film, a clip that shows about our local program, but this is part of a national crusade.
Absolutely. New York is a wonderful example of what's happening actually in a dozen cities around the country right now: Philadelphia, Washington, Boston, Cleveland, and others. There are about 1,300 members of Experience Corps right now working in about 100 elementary schools around the country.
And do they each do the same thing, or is each city has a slightly different model?
Yes and yes.
Right.
It's all the same idea, which is to take the untapped resource of older Americans, people who are retired from their regular work, and apply that to the unmet need of kids in elementary schools with a big focus on literacy. That is all the same. Exactly how the program is delivered in different cities and in different schools, there's some flexibility for meeting local needs.
Now, is this new? Haven't there been voluntary programs, people come into schools? How is this different?
Absolutely. Well, I would never suggest that Experience Corps is the only project that brings retirees into schools to help kids. There are many, many projects, but Experience Corps is a new version, we think, of this old idea. We have, in this country, a huge number of people who are coming near to retirement age. And the new retirees are not going to be like the past retirees. Baby boomers, or whatever you want to call them if you don't like that phrase, and I don't really like that phrase.
Getting too close.
This new group of retirees can expect to live longer, healthier lives than any past generation. It used to be sort of the picture was you would work until you were something like 65 years old, you'd retire for a couple of years, you'd get sick, and you'd die. And now people expect to live 20 years after they finish their normal work. And so what are they going to do with that time? Meanwhile, we have in this country tremendous unmet needs, especially around kids in elementary schools, particularly in urban elementary schools, as we saw in the video. And the idea of Experience Corps is to try to create a project, a program that will appeal to this new generation of retirees and take what they've got, all the experience, the time, the commitment to social justice, and channel it and apply it to this really important need.
Kemba, it's not just obviously volunteers going to schools. There's infrastructure here. Can you tell us a little bit about how that all works? I mean, we have staff that serve the volunteers, but just give us an example of how it would work for a senior who's suddenly interested after watching this program.
Well, what's unique about the New York City Experience Corps program is that the volunteers work in teams of 10 to 12. So it's not like an isolated volunteer assignment where you are sent off into the corner to do some filing. These volunteers are coming in to work with children, elementary school students, first and second grade students, and they actually work with a very structured program called Book Buddies, developed by the University of Virginia. And basically a typical day is that a volunteer would come in, they would talk with their peers, they would pick up the child from the classroom and tutor the child for 45 minutes a day. And each volunteer has about 3 to 4 children in a day. So they're there 4 hours a day, 4 days a week, which is a large commitment when you're talking about older adults giving back to their community.
Mm-hmm. And what is there a standard? Where have these seniors generally worked before, or had they worked before? They weren't teachers.
Well, you know, they come from all varied backgrounds. We have a retired cop. We have a truck driver, we have folks that have worked for New York Telephone Company.
Right.
It's a very varied background, and what we say to them is that all we need is your commitment and your caring and dedication, and we'll train you. We'll give you the training that you need so that you're prepared to work with these students for the rest of the year.
And what are the kind of motivations they talk about why they want to do this?
Well, a lot of the volunteers say, you know, I wasn't doing anything before you called. I am a widower, and I didn't have very many of my friends that I worked with.
Mm-hmm.
Now, coming into Experience Corps, I have a new group of friends. Most of them are church sisters. They go to church together, or they may have worked in a social service field or in the telephone company before, so they're reuniting with old friends. And what's interesting is that it's a dual benefit, where the children are learning how to read, but the seniors are socializing together, and they're getting something out of it also.
John, talk about some of the other cities that you're working in and where this is starting to become a movement. Which
Absolutely.
Is what
Absolutely. I just wanted to follow up on what Kemba said. It's absolutely true. One of the principal problems for older adults is isolation, physical isolation and social isolation. And this program has been designed specifically to meet those challenges. That's why Experience Corps members work in teams. And there's just some research that came out of Johns Hopkins University that documented the benefits to older adults, health benefits, things like fewer falls, fewer doctor calls, and social benefits, a sense among the people that participate in Experience Corps that if they have a problem, they have a larger group of people on whom they can call for help. And these are critical things for older adults.
It's interesting. We have an American culture which everything is based on work. Your stature, your engagement, where you fit in the society. And then we have this very bizarre notion of retirement, which is sort of, you lose all that potentially if you're not careful.
Absolutely.
And I think it's particularly hard for working people. I mean, if you have enormous resources, then you can, you join the whatever it is, the museum board.
You apparently don't know what it is.
I won't even alienate any of my constituencies. But the question of working people who are not poor, but who have worked all their lives, but suddenly hit retirement, and how do they engage, I think is going to be, I think the baby boomers are just right. In a society that's driven us to work enormous numbers of hours, and that's been our sort of organizing principle of our whole lives. What do you do here?
Well, you make a very good point. There are really two places that people find their society, their friends, their network. One is work. The other is through their children and the parents of their kids' friends, right? So you have a situation where people who are 60 to 65 years old, one, stop working, so they stop that daily interaction with colleagues, and two, their kids are out of the house, off on their own. All of a sudden, you have all this time and nobody to talk to. So what we have found in talking to Experience Corps members in New York and other places is that people, they love the fact that they don't have their old job at the phone company or at the Department of Social Services or at Chrysler or wherever it is they worked. They love that, but they really miss the social part of it. What they don't want from work is the stress, the pressure, the elbowing that goes on in in all of our lives, the bosses, all of that. I mean, when we talked, Kemba and I were at a school in Bedford-Stuyvesant not so long ago. We had a little round table. What is it you miss about work? I miss talking to people every day. I miss structure in my life. I miss purpose, and all of those things. Experience Corps is designed to reinsert in people's lives, but subtracting out the boss, the pressure, the climbing, all of those things. And that's, so what we'd like is to distill those great parts of work that we all love, subtract out those things that we don't all love, and offer people a great experience. Meanwhile, doing one of the most important things that we can do in our society, which is teach kids to read by the time they complete the 3rd grade.
Kemba knows, and CSS, as sort of the parent of the Experience Corps in New York, know that our grand vision basically is to have this essentially in every low-performing elementary school in the city of New York. I mean, a huge program, ultimately, that will take a lot of support. What's the grand vision for the National Experience Corps? What would be the achievement in 5 to 10 years?
It's a great question. It's a really good and important question for us to all think about all the time. I know what your vision is for New York, and I love that vision. I'm not sure if I want Experience Corps, the program, the named program, in every school in America, but here's a few things that I really want to have happen and I think are important. One, that we really can help meet this need of helping kids to learn to read and demonstrate that that works. Two, that we can demonstrate that people who are retired from their regular work are not worthless to society, not a burden on society, but actually a huge advantage to society. What happens from that? I mean, I think every school principal in America should say, I want to have something like that. I don't know whether it should be called Experience Corps or whether it needs to be called Experience Corps, but what I really want is for people to see that older adults are a critical asset to our society to actually help get very important things done. Not you know, envelope stuffing, not things, I mean, those are all good activities, but I'm talking about critical activities in the society because, look, all we hear about on all the other television shows about aging in America is how much it's going to cost. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid,
It's burden
prescription
on the
drug, burden on the government, burden on younger people. That better be only half the story of aging in America. Otherwise, we're looking at something that will divide our country, not bring it together. Experience Corps, I would like, you know, it would be great if it were in every school in America, but what would be even greater is if it were just a beacon and showed people there's a different way to view this aging of America, view it as a benefit.
It's interesting.
Not as a cost.
Part of the thing that we're excited, in addition to that, in New York City, I think, along with a lot of other large urban areas with the large urban school systems that have been failing, I think the public, particularly communities of color, felt totally powerless to do anything about their schools. I think what grabbed me immediately, because so many of our seniors are drawn from within a very short radius of the schools they serve in, is you don't have to just sit there. I mean, this frustration of watching things happen to a generation of children and feeling you can't do anything about it. You can't find a way to insert yourself to do something about it. And the way this program seems to provide a window in a way that it certainly is welcome for the first time by many of the institutional players who generally don't like everything about community control. But it really has a fascinating effect. And I think, Kemba, would you talk about the recruitment and retention rate of this program? I think it's enormous. We've been at it 6 years now.
Yes, we've been at it since 1996. And what we found, which was very interesting, is that as soon as we put the word out to the communities that we had this need of working with children, it was within weeks we were able to meet our goal. Most recently, we've expanded into Harlem, and we wanted to get 40 volunteers, and within 2 weeks, we were able to meet that goal. And what that really talks to and what it speaks to is that there are people in the community that want to give back. And a lot of our seniors are already doing breast cancer awareness walks and helping the elderly. Sending a lunch for a neighbor who may be unable to get out of the home. So they're already involved. This just adds to their repertoire of volunteerism and service into the community. We are in the South Bronx, we're in Brooklyn, and we're in Harlem, and we hope to be in every 5 boroughs by the year 2006. But one thing's for sure, there are people out there that are very interested in the program.
And John, what about the seniors you've been dealing with in the rest of the country?
Well,
how are they?
I find that same thing, and we have the same thing across the country, that it's people from the immediate communities who are finding a way to insert themselves in the schools. I was in Cleveland just last week, and there was a wonderful column by a Metro columnist in Cleveland. He called Experience Corps the perfect example of community involvement in the schools. And I think that's important in general, but it's important particularly with respect to older adults. You know, older adults no longer have kids in the schools and often are viewed as potential enemies of public schools. You put up a bond, or all the people who don't have kids. Well, that's all bogus. It's wrong, and Experience Corps helps to demonstrate it's wrong. There is no one who is more committed to the future of kids and to the future of public schools than older adults. Experience Corps gives them an outlet to show that.
Thank you. My thanks to John Gomperts from the Experience Corps National Office in Washington, D.C., and my CSS colleague, Kemba Tamar. I'm David R. Jones of the Community Service Society, and thank you for watching The Urban Agenda. To learn more about the work of the Community Service Society of New York or to comment on the Urban Agenda, please contact us at 212-614-5425 and on the web at www.cssny.org.